Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and it's Overreaction Monday after the Raiders' monumental win up against the Cleveland Browns 20-16. I'll tell you this, I said it yesterday, I am unbelievably proud of this football team. So what we're going to be talking about here on today's show is the three biggest topics going on right now around the Las Vegas Raiders. We're going to talk about Antonio Pierce. We're going to talk about Luke Getsy, and then we're going to talk about A.J. Cole, because that's definitely somebody that needs to get some love. I said it yesterday, and I mean it when I say it. When the Raiders win, and when it's all going good, I'm a little bit of a superstitious person, and it worked yesterday. It worked week 2 up against the Baltimore Ravens, but sub for Raiders dubs. If you're proud of this team when you walked into work today, hell, if you walked into work today a little bit like A.J. Cole, I want you to hit that subscribe button. It was not a pretty football game, but good teams find a way to win. So that's the very first thing coming up here on today's Overreaction Monday. The Raiders, they can be a good team with Antonio Pierce. I am going to give this one 4 just win babies, and I'm not sitting up here saying that they are a good football team. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they showed me yesterday that they can be a good football team. And I got 4 big reasons why I'm confident in what I say that. And this is one of those things where I feel like every time I watch a Chiefs game, I know, Mitch, it's the Raiders Report. Let's celebrate this win. The Chiefs always find a way to win just like the ugly football games. And you go back and you look through the history of this team, this organization, over just the past few years, whether it was John Gruden, whether it was Josh McDaniels, whether it was way before those guys. And if I would have wrote you a script, the way that game went yesterday, the Raiders end up losing that game. They got some lucky bounces. They got some calls maybe go their way, but then also they did the little things when they needed to do the little things correctly. And good teams find a way to win really ugly football games. And anybody that watched that game from start to finish, from the moment that game got going, you go, oh no, this could be a bad game here for the Silver and Black. But you know what? They never gave up. And teams that can win the ugly games, and teams that can win the ugly game, and a game where they don't even play an A-plus game, a B-plus game, but then the fact that they're down 10-0. And I know everybody that's tuning into this show right now probably sounds as shitty as what I do, but I was screaming my head off celebrating a big-time Raiders dub. But they go down 10-0 to Cleveland. And when you're down 10-0 at home, considering the way that game ended up going last week against Carolina, I mean, you could have heard a needle drop on that grass yesterday. I mean, it was quiet in there. It was a lot of orange jerseys in there. The Browns fans, they traveled well. But this team never, ever, ever gave up. And the fact that they were able to win an ugly football game, a game that they never gave up, where you got your head coach calling people out for business decisions, this team answered. And you did it without your stars. You did it without Maxx Crosby. You did it without Davante Adams. Quite frankly, and let's have an honest conversation here. If I would have looked at any single Raiders fan before the season started, and I would have said, there's going to be a game this year where the Raiders win that game without Maxx Crosby and without Davante Adams, I think I would have got trolled for that statement. Quite frankly, you watch the Raiders and how they beat the Browns, and then you watch the fact that this team beat the Baltimore Ravens and how good the Ravens looked. Bottom line is anybody can beat anybody in the NFL. And the Browns offense, yes, they had some injuries. The Browns defense had some injuries as well. But the Raiders also had injuries on both sides of the football, so I don't want to hear that excuse. Both teams dealt with different things, but at the end of the day, this team did what they needed to do. And the final thing here, why I'm so flippin' proud of this football team getting a win, many players humbled themselves. And you have to have a special relationship as a coach and players to be able to say the whole business decision thing. And I don't want to talk about it anymore this week because Antonio Pierce even apologized on Sunday, essentially being like, I brought a lot of negative attention to this team, which I really wasn't trying to do. But, I get what AP was trying to do. He was trying to light up a fire underneath some people's butts. For a guy like Jack Jones, who was a starter, didn't play in the first quarter, he had to humble himself and go, you know what, maybe I did take some business decisions. And then he came back out there in that second half, and I thought he played a really good football game. You had players that maybe were used to getting a few extra snaps, but because they didn't have some of their usual stars, you're without Marcus Epps, you're without Divine Diablo, you're without Maxx Crosby. More guys had to go, you know what, I'm willing to play a little bit more of a rotation, and this was a good win. It looked like a football team, or it looked like a basketball team where they go 10 guys deep. Instead of going up against a team that's got 5 really good starters and maybe a 6th guy off the bench, the Raiders showed you yesterday, which hasn't been something that I've been able to say, that their depth played well. And you had a lot of your starters humble themselves because they knew in this game, in this situation, it was going to be a collective effort. It was going to have to be every single player stepping up, doing their job. And there was a lot of players, from Charles Snowden to Kaylavon Chasen to Tyree Wilson to Christian Wilkins. I mean, a lot of guys. Isaiah Polamau ended up stepping up, making big-time plays. DJ Turner when this team mattered and needed it the most. So here's my question, and this is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, which means you're about to get hit with a YouTube ad break. While that ad is playing, I want you to scroll on down and give me your God-honest answer. I'm going to give you my answer, and I want you to see what this Raiders schedule is here before you end up giving that answer. Reminder that the NFL 5th trade deadline is right after Week 9 against the Bengals, and you can see you got the Broncos, you got the Steelers, you got the Rams, you got the Chiefs, and you got the Bengals. All games that you can win, all games that you can lose, and that's how the Raiders are going to be every single day for this entire season. They can win any game. They can also lose any game, which makes pulling up to a watch party that much fun. What will the Raiders' record be by the NFL trade deadline? My answer is going to be 4-5, and I know that might not be a popular opinion, but it's just me giving you my honest 2 cents here. I believe that the Raiders are going to take care of business and beat the Denver Broncos. The Pittsburgh Steelers, that's going to be a tough game. The Rams, that's going to be a tough game. The Chiefs, tough game. Bengals, tough game. So when I look at all those other games, I think that you could potentially have a coin flip in there. I want the Raiders to be 5-4, but I did say this. As long as they are not 3-6, if you're 4-5, I don't think that this is going to be a team that's selling. There's definitely some players that we can talk about the closer and closer that gets. You know, maybe it is a Michael Mayer. Maybe it is a Davante Adams. I don't have the answer. My point is, though, this Raiders team cannot be in sell mode if they are 4-5 or better at the NFL trade deadline. Let's go to the next thing here, and we're going to talk about Luke Getsy. If there's been one dude that's been on the F Luke Getsy train, it's time to fire this guy, it has been me. But is Luke Getsy now off the hot seat after that performance that he had up against the Cleveland Browns? I'm going to give you my honest answer, but first, I got to talk about our sponsor, PrizePicks. And I'm a pretty happy camper. I put an extra $20 in my pocket over the weekend. Why? Because I had one of my PrizePicks lineups ended up winning. I put 5 in. I ended up winning 20. And if anybody is like me and you want to watch 2 Monday Night Football games tonight, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and make sure that you use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That is code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, and PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. So one of the picks that I was looking at here for tonight's games, and you know, I do usually pick the few Raiders games, but for tonight, the fact that there's 2 Monday night games, I can go on my phone, I can pick out what I want here, like DK Metcalf, 67.5 receiving yards, more or less on that. Geno Smith, 247.5 passing yards, more or less on that. Maybe you want to go in the Miami game. Devon Achane, he's got the demon pick there for a rushing, receiving touchdown. My point is, if you're not doing anything tonight and you want to just be able to sit down and have a chance to win a little bit of money, maybe sit down with your wife, maybe sit down with your kids, teach them a thing or two about football, because I know this, I sound like crap today, and I'm happy that I sound like crap today. I would also love for you guys to sound like crap tomorrow morning because you're screaming your head off after you won a whole bunch on PrizePicks. Let's go to Luke Getsy here. And is Getsy off the hot seat? This is an overreaction. And we got to give our flowers to Getsy. That game yesterday was the best game Luke Getsy called as an offensive coordinator since his time with the Silver and Black. He was better. And I know there's that game against the Ravens. That fourth quarter against the Ravens, that's still the best quarter of football I think I've seen that this team's played. But from an entire sample size, from start to finish, Getsy has usually been somebody that starts fast and can't make any adjustments. When you look at this Raiders stat sheet here on offense, it's not going to light up the board. You got 268 yards of total offense. Passing was 14 of 24 for 116. Rushing, though, and this is why I think that this is how this has got to go. The only way that the Raiders are going to be a successful football team is if Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell or whoever their quarterback ends up being can rely on an offensive line and can rely on not only running backs, but just, your entire team to get that running game going. And they had 5.2 yards per carry. They were playing physical football. They were creating some misconfusions. Yeah, DJ Turner, Trey Tucker. I thought Alexander Madison ran really well with the football. Obviously, Zamir White's going to be a loser from this game with that fumble, but when you just talk about the adjustments that they made, especially in that second and third quarter, it's why I think Luke Getsy, not going to lie, made me go for a split second. All right, maybe, just maybe, it's going to take a little bit of time to get this thing figured out. He's not off the hot seat yet, but we did take a step in the right direction, which is a really, really important thing, especially for how bad we were all down week 3 after that loss to Carolina. So to me, here's why I want to give Getsy his flowers. There were multiple players that got involved in the running game, and I'm not just talking about Alexander Madison. I'm talking about DJ Turner. I'm talking about Trey Tucker. And, when you talk about just some of the little plays that needed to happen in order to set up some big plays, Alexander Madison on 3rd down and 9, which when that play was called, they go, oh my God, Getsy, you just called a run play on 3rd down and 9. But he noticed that Madison was seeing it well. He noticed the coverage that Cleveland was doing, and then he's able to pick up 10 yards following play. End around DJ Turner, takes it 18 yards, and for a touchdown, it was a hell of a run by Turner. But when you do that, it makes that defense think a little bit more of, all right, this isn't just going to be a team that's just going to try to run up the middle. And when you have struggling offensive linemen, when you're trying to figure out your center, when you're trying to figure out Jackson Powers-Johnson, when your tackles are struggling in that game, which they did going up against Myles Garrett. But when you can create a little bit of misdirection, it makes a guy think for a half a second. And in the NFL, that's important. It also made our offense not look so damn vanilla. One of the other things that I loved that I thought I saw was the offense finally looked like it had an identity. This team was a team that I know that they have Davante Adams, and I'm not going to sit up here and say that this offense is better without Davante Adams. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm simply saying that this was a team that went out there and tried to do what they wanted to do. They wanted to be a physical football team, and they wanted to try to run it down your throat, but they also were able to trust their defense. They were also able to trust their special teams, and it just looked like a team that knew what they wanted to do, and that looked like a team that knew what they were trying to accomplish. I mean, when you're down 10-0, and you go 20 points unanswered, and you're able to make the corrections that you did in that second and third quarter, that's another big tip of the cap to Luke Getsy, something that he has not been able to do. Entering the game against Cleveland, the Raiders were one of the best teams in the NFL in the first quarter. They were number 1 in the fourth quarter, but they were basically dead last in points scored in second and third quarter, even yards gained. And Getsy, I thought, goes, all right, let's switch it up here. We're going to go do something a little bit different, and we're going to try to get Tyreek McAllister the football in his hand. We're going to let our athletes be athletes, and instead of trying to do these like quick screens where it doesn't make a lot of sense to do quick screens with Gardner Minshew, he doesn't have the arm strength to get the ball out quickly, and you're kind of setting your receivers up for failure, where instead they took that screen game that they usually do, and instead of throwing it to Trey Tucker, instead of throwing it to DJ Turner, they go, all right, well, can we put the ball in their gut and see what those athletes can do? You let JPJ get out there and be a menace. You let some of these players get down the field and really have fun run blocking, because recently they haven't having any fun run blocking. You switched up the scheme here a little bit and inspired some confidence in me. The last one is this. Winning without Davante Adams deserves some love. Like, I don't care who you are, what you do in the NFL, when you don't have your best player on offense, and I know Tay's getting up there in age, and there's at times where I go, maybe Davante doesn't fit this offense the way that Getsy wants to run it. But if anybody doesn't think that Davante Adams is the best player on this offense, then I just don't know if you know ball all that well. The attention that guy takes away, and the way that the Raiders played with Harrison Bryant, with using Brock Bowers, and Bowers didn't even bring his best game, but just getting Jacoby Myers involved when they needed the big first down, stretching the field a little bit here and there with Trey Tucker, using the extra blocking from Harrison Bryant. If you can figure out a way to get Davante, let's say 8 to 10 targets a game, but then also play a little bit of that smash mouth style of football, which, maybe when you go with that style, you can have Davante out there on the field. Maybe you decide to put Jacoby because Jacoby's a lot more willing to block. Now, in the red zone, I always want Davante out there, and you're going to have to switch it up from time to time. but Luke Getsy deserves flowers for putting together a good game plan and not having a lot of healthy players and going out there and getting a dub in a very hard-fought, ugly football game. But you got to be a good team to win an ugly football game. So how about this? I feel like if I would have asked this question last week, I would have got nothing but ones, some twos, and maybe a three in there. What is your confidence level right now in Luke Getsy after the Browns game? You're going to get hit with another YouTube ad break. While that ad is playing, I want you to scroll on down, and I'm going to give you my answer. My confidence level in Getsy right now is a 3. It's still not a lot, but it's 3 times as high as what it was last week. And I think that this is one of those games where now you got to build, right? We can't week in and week out have a good week, and then you have the following week, it's a letdown. Good football teams respond. Good football teams need to build off of the success that you had this week, because I don't know if you're going to have Davante this week again. So, Getsy, you're building a little bit of confidence here, but now it's a big-time game where you got to get right against a division rival, a team that you've beat 8 times in a row, and a team that, if you want to run the football on them, because they can't run the ball, maybe you can run the football on them. I got to give a shout-out to our Week 4 MVP, Bryce B., man. My guy had 16 bangs yesterday against the Cleveland Browns, and make no mistake, I don't know if this is our lucky charm here at the Raiders Report, but he's been the MVP 2 times on a watch party. 2 times. Week 2, Week 4. Y'all do the math. Bryce, hey, man, I'm not saying you got to do this every week, but I was talking to you last night, and man, oh, man, oh, man. Every time I felt like Bryce B banged, every time I felt like Raider Ron banged, every time I felt like Jedi Spidey, I felt like any time we were putting good energy out into the world, the Raiders were doing some good stuff. And if you don't believe me, I think it's unbelievably accurate. We also gave away over $2,000 yesterday in duck races. Bryce B, shout out to you, brother. Let's go to the final thing here. A.J. Cole is the best punter in the NFL. This one's for Just Win Babies. Believe it, baby. And I had to bring up A.J. Cole simply because of the possession game that the Raiders had in this one. The Browns offense, outside of that first drive they had where they went like 9.5 minutes, 16 plays. I mean, they went all the way down the field. Outside of that, after that drive, I felt like Cleveland had to go 80-plus yards every single time they got the ball. And for a team that's got the amount of injuries, for the team that's got the amount of offensive line issues, for a team that's got a quarterback that, has been dealing with a lot of shit from their fan base, which, don't get me wrong, Deshaun Watson is my least favorite player in the NFL right now, but he had to always go long drives. And for 4 punts, which totaled 232 yards, which also 2 inside the 20 and a long of 67. When you have a punter that can flip the field in a game like that, I can't tell you enough how important this guy is right here. And he is the best punter in the NFL. And I'm usually a very aggressive person when it comes to being able to go out there and go for it on 4th down. When you got a punter that's this good and you go 3 and out, or if you don't have an offensive drive that you're looking for, and he has the ability where he's putting the ball from like the 10, the 20-yard line, and then pin you inside of the 20. I mean, I'm telling you what, right now, that is such a competitive advantage that not nearly enough of people talk about. And I hope every single person, when they walked into work today, you walked in looking like number 6, because A.J. Cole is a dog, and you need to have a bunch of dogs, a bunch of players that might not get a lot of attention from the media, but everybody knows. You're rocking an A.J. Cole jersey. If I see you rocking an A.J. Cole jersey, I know that you're a freaking real one, and this guy's a real one, and he's the best punter in the NFL, and low-key a big part of why the Raiders were able to get this win up against the Cleveland Browns. Now, I'll tell you this, I'm going to get you another video later on today. I'm going to get you a video bright and early tomorrow. No days off here on the Raiders Report. And if you're trying to have a good time, you can always follow me on Instagram or Twitter at Mitchell Renz 365. And make sure you guys are ready for Thursday night watch parties. They're going to be wild. They're going to be crazy all year long. But before I go, I'm an emotional person. And I sound this bad because of all the hooting and hollering. But man, oh man, when that team wins, there's not a better feeling walking into work. There's not a better feeling, because I am that emotional Raider fan that lets Raiders football for 3 hours control a lot of times the way that I feel throughout the week. But I do that because of how important this team is, how important the nation is to me. And I hope you all see that we're going to bring it this week, and we got to have a big week. Let's go get a dub against the Denver Broncos, man. I'm out.